So hello guys, welcome to the channel, and our topic for today is another standard deck tech, in which we will reference the deck from a recent local tournament, which they call it as Open at the Pizza Box, wherein there were 78 participants and was held last June 19th, 2022. And for this deck today that we're going to feature is what they call as the Orzhov Midrange, which I think is still one of the can be considered as a top tier deck, but I think it is still between 1 and 1.5 as per performance. But what interests me today is the list or the card components that we have shared. So we're going to discuss it bit by bit by card choices, and also with, of course, the sideboard plan and what other matches did it faced in the tournament. So we go with the 2 drops in the deck, wherein the usual lineup was the Luminar Aspirant, in which it's not only catered in Esper of Index but also here in Orzhov Midrange. But a new card that can be I think will be placed in the spotlight is the Cerebral Quill Silencer. So with ability, it is to cast 3 to human. As it enters the battlefield, you choose an unknown card name. So when an opponent casts a spell with the chosen name, they will lose 3 life and you will draw a card. Basing on this deck setup, they have currently no ways in the main deck to check on their opponent's hand. So basically, getting familiar with the metagame is what this card function will benefit from. So basing to lose the 3 life and draw a card is also a good bonus, and it's also a good attacker by itself, because it's a 2 to cast for, it's a 3 power toughness for 2, and along with the Luminar Expand can grow bigger depending on the situation. So 4 copies of is in the main, it will not entirely stop the spell, but having the bonus to making them lose 3 life and you drawing a card is somewhat kind of a card advantage and life loss disadvantage for their part. So along with it, we have also 3 copies of Redain, God of the Worthy, which is also making sure that their non-creature spells for mana value 4 or greater will cost them more. And if ever you get to this scenario, you can just basically cast it for its flip version, the Bakmira Protector Shield. So basically giving you the control, maybe sort of a control feature of the deck if you go with this route, in which you can just basically prevent their damage, 1 of their damage, and then having them taxed with that whenever they have this spell that targets you or a permanent you control. So 3 copies, making sure that you can go by turn 3, and it's later on can also go in aggro if you get to curb with these 2 in the first 2 turns with these 2 drops. So along with this build, we also have 2 copies of Henrica Dominati. This is a vampire that goes with 1/3, wherein it goes with the trigger at the beginning of your combat. You choose one which has not been chosen. So you can make the player sacrifice a creature, or you can draw a card and lose 1 life, or you can transform her to Henrica Infernal Seal. So if you're going to see her, it becomes a 3/4 flying that touch lifelink, in which it has ability that you can pay black and colorless. Each creature you control get flying that touch and or lifelink gets +0 until the end of turn. So pseudo pump in itself, but not really goes with the other creatures, but she can go with a good mana sink in the late game, and also a standalone creature threat by itself, being flying that touch and lifelink. So spot removals for black white is pretty much the same, given that you just choose the best spells in the current format. So Eternal Grasp it is for black, and copies of Vanishing Verse as the lone black-white instant spot removal for monocolored, and also have the options for Hagra Mauling, wherein you can display it for Hagra Brood Pit if needed. Along with it are Planeswalkers, which also good in making utility with Wandering Emperor, 3 copies, and Long Game Emira's Call for land-based spell, and also having you to produce 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying. It's better Splendid, given with its ability to +1, you can have another effective creature, but I think this is more of a utility since it only has 2 in the main. So having to -3 can also a good advantage, where you can put out a permanent card with mana value 2 or less from among them to the battlefield with a shield counter on it. So we have choices for Restoration of Biganjo or Wedding Announcement as to just gum up the board and produce tokens also at the same time. We also have Lolth, so given 5 to cast Planeswalker for black, which can also produce blockers. You can draw your card and lose land life, but whenever a creature controls, you can put a little counter on it, wherein you can basically ramp up to its ultimate ability of emblem to its -8 ability. So as another addition, which is also given mass removal for Orzhov and basically for black, is Myth of Massacre, which works well with the token effects such as that of the announcement and the Restoration of Biganjo on its flip version, where in the Architect of Restoration, which can produce 1/1 scoreless creature tokens when it's triggered ability on attacking or blocking. So with that effect, can go with Siphons, with Mythhawk, creature pump with an announcement on its flip, Wedding Festivity, and also effects of having more creatures produced from this token Planeswalker, which can also produce token generators. Now for the land choices, we also have Cave of the Frost Dragon and 3 Hive of the Eye Tyrant. This basically goes with the trigger of removing card from the defending player's graveyard whenever it attacks. Along with it are just basic the black-white fixed lands and a lone Raffine's Tower for additional picks, and of course basic lands in the main. So I think this is about let me check the 24 lands, 13 creatures. We have 7 instant and sorceries and 16 other spells. Now for the sideboard choices, I think is basic for the deck. Duresses, Race of Enfeeblement for mono white, Fracture, which is also new. They can destroy instant. It's an instant that destroys artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker, which is basically good for the current metagame. 1 copy of Humiliate, which is sort of the 2 to cast discard. New land card, and the player discards a card. Then you put up some sound counter on a creature you control. Basically goes with it on the turn 3 or turn 4, wherein you already have creatures to put this counter. Along with Archon of Emeria, it is 3 copies in the deck, in which Storm decks for EZ is very popular nowadays. So having this card to make them just play 1 spell only per turn, basically hold off their combo routine. And having this non-basic lands enter the battlefield tap also delays their mana producing or board setup in that case. So I think this is mostly auto sideboard for most mid-range decks. And the match up, then Graveyard Trespasser also can be a good option, since there are few Graveyard Shenanigans in the metagame. For mono white, basically we have just Creeping Free Fear, Race, Enfeeblement, and maybe a copy of Fracture. For control, let's just go with the EZ Dragons, which is basically the popular deck in the metagame. We have Jures, Humiliate, copies of Archon of Meria can go blank, and Graveyard Saucer to go with the Graveyard Hate under matchup. Then basically against them you can just remove random spot removals, make a remove Infernal Grasp, some Mythhawks, Restoration can be also be removed and lessened. When the announcement is still good, maybe we can cut off Elspeth since she's very slow for that game, and maybe some Luminar Aspirants too, since they are very vulnerable for the burn decks spot removals. So for let me say for White Winnie, we can have the basic sideboarding of Ray Enfeeblement. We can also have Crippling Fear, maybe Graveyard Trespasser if we expect them to have spells like Recursion, like Patch Up, and just remove some clunky cards, maybe Restoration, Elspeth, Loth. Loth is still good. Maybe a Wedding Announcement and Henrika Domnati, since they go with the 1-for-1 spot removal, which is making her somewhat a slow edict card. So they are auto cut in this matchup against White. So now if we check on the other players in the top 8, since he got into the top 8 only, no, not on the top 4 or finals. So if we check against this, maybe he has faced against Jeskai or Is It Control. So Is It Control is basically, I think, a bad matchup for him, given that still have enough discards in the sideboard, but since you cannot really penetrate your offensive against this deck, they can just basically lose against multiple maybe attacks from the manlands or just random advantage from Planeswalkers. So still on overall, I think still can recommend this build, given that it's still made into the top 8 with 78 players in attendance. That will be around 6 to 7 rounds, I think. 6 rounds maybe. So it has performed very well despite the very mid-range build and an unusual card inclusion into the deck. But if you really want to try this in your next grind sessions in MTG Arena or on Magic Online, then I can just basically recommend this to you guys, and you would want to try this build and also go with what other adjustments that you may want to have. So just comment below if you go with this list, and I'll wrap this up for this video deck tech today. Thank you for checking on this video. If you like this, you might want to subscribe more for more Magic the Gathering content, deck techs, and the like of this channel. So that's about it for this Orzhov Midrange deck tech. Until the next output for Magic the Gathering standard deck creation and other related content, and see you on the next one.